Hey guys, we're back. Welcome back to Culture Critic Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Nicholson, and we're in there now. I mean, we are all the way in there now. Reunited, and it feels so good, right? And so I know we talked about cancel culture starting off, right? But let's talk about culture in general. Let's talk about the culture. When people say the culture, they mean the contributions, the what is stolen from, what is borrowed from, what is sometimes not given just due when it comes to black culture. When I say black culture, I mean African American culture, Negro, black folk, African imports. That's us. Imported, not immigrated. But the culture. The culture is mainstream culture. Our culture is the culture in the Western world. The fashion, the music, the entertainment, the sports, the lingo and the language and the jargon is the culture, is the contributions of black people, whether people acknowledge it or not. How can you not acknowledge what you borrow from? But that's the story of our culture. I saw something that really was riveting to me, really was just kind of made my baby leap, so to speak. And it was a clip from Mark Lamont Hill. And he was actually here in Chicago. I think this was either last year or the year before, at St. Sabina Church there with Father Flager, who's an activist in his own right. And he said, the clip starts off saying, America knows who you are. And it's for us to realize now who we are. He said, they'll call you lazy, but then make you a slave. He said, they'll call you dirty, but have you clean their house. And this is the part that really got me. He said, they'll call you savages, but we raise their children. I mean, Mark Lamont Hill is a bad fella there. You can't do nothing with him. And so it really, really kind of set the tone for me for this month, which I'm always like, anybody tell you, and there's no secret. I tell people that I'm somewhere between Spike Lee and T.D. Jakes, or Spike Lee and Bishop Charles Blake. Like I'm right in the middle. I was woke before it was cool. And so, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know what an alarm clock is. And so, culture. Culture is not only what belongs to a certain ethnicity. It's not only what belongs to a certain nationality, but it is ideas. It is ideals. It is what belongs to a people group. It is what belongs to a generation. It is what belongs to a society. It's the art. Again, it's the music. It's the way, it's practices. It's tradition. It's what is the norm. It is what is passed down. Culture is passed down. Culture changes. Culture dictates what the norm is. Culture over time dictates what the new normal is. Just like, our entertainment influences our culture. Our culture influences our entertainment. Cinema is a way that influences our culture. If you go see a movie, right? You go see a movie. While you're in that movie, you are going to be influenced by what the actors have on, the wardrobe choices. You're going to be influenced by the product placement, which I go back and watch some of my favorite movies that have a Coca-Cola machine or a Coca-Cola sitting on the table or Coca-Cola somewhere in the frame, right? Before Pepsi was as prominent as it is now. That product placement, what they do, the cars that they drive, the lingo that they use, the how they act, that influences what we do. Our entertainment choices influence what we do. And so culture is one of those things that is ever changing. It's always being defined. It's one of those things that if you have, thank you, Walter Jones, a herd mentality, right? Sir Walter. If you have a herd mentality, right? You just kind of follow the crowd. You just kind of follow what everyone is doing in the culture. But I'm here to counteract that. I am here to challenge that. I'm here to say that we have to be sober and vigilant and not just go with everything the culture says. Because the majority, my friends, can be wrong. Just because it's the majority doesn't mean that it's right. Right? When I was a kid, we used to play Follow the Leader. The leader said, sway, you sway. The leader said... No, that's Bishop Larry Trotter. But it's true. We just play Follow the Leader. We just go along to get along, right? We don't want to stand out. We don't want to stand on our own 2 feet. We don't want to be a rebel rouser. We don't want to be on the fringes of society and popular thought. We don't want to be on the fringes of what is normal, what normalcy is. We don't want to stand out. I'm telling you, in 2025, it's time to stand out. In 2025, it is time to challenge what has become the conventional. It's time to challenge what has become normal, because new normal is not normal. Common sense is not so common. And so what we endeavor to do is to look at culture critically. Is to look at culture from a different lens, from a different point of view, from a different vantage point. To look at culture with fresh eyes. If you're in a fight, right? You see it from one perspective, right? And the people on the outside are saying, duck, get out the way, move. And you're saying, my legs won't let me. You have noodle legs. You can't see because your eye is swollen. And when we're in the culture, sometimes we can't see the effects of the culture on our psyche, on our mind, on decency. Normalcy is not decency in 2025. As I said before, common sense is not so common. Just because something is lawful doesn't mean that it's right. Just because something, and let's say this, just because something is permissible does not make it lawful. I should stop and raise an offering right now. You see the number on the screen, call 555 seed offering. No. Just because something is permissible does not make it lawful. All right? And so let's challenge the norm. Let's challenge the culture. Let's challenge it to be more in a position to stand upright morally. Just, okay, for instance, right? Random acts of kindness. Y'all, we got to do better. Just because you have a phone doesn't mean you have to use it. Just because you have a camera doesn't mean you have to use it. Just because you can record something does not mean you should. How can a person be their authentic self when you're saying, "Hi, I want to give you $1,000 and I'm recording it for my millions of followers so they can see you be blessed. So they can see you cry. So they can see me bless you." You know, scripture speaks of something called alms. And when you give your alms, when you give something to the poor, when you give something to someone less fortunate, when you give something to someone who is in need, scripture says don't tell anyone. Don't shout it from a rooftop. And what's the rooftop? Social media. What's the rooftop? Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, X, YouTube, right? No, it's a way to do things. It's a way to do good. There's a proper way to do good. Just like there is a wrong way to do good. It's like doing something for somebody and throwing it in their face every time you want to get a certain reaction out of them. That's manipulation. Reminding them of what you've done for them. Right? And so that's one of those things in the culture, guys, we got to do better. We got to do better. We have to do better. It's not about how many eyes are on what you do. It's about the quality of how you live your life day to day when the camera is not on. Am I making sense? Am I getting through to you in 2025? In the year of our Lord, 2025? And so, yeah, culture is an amalgamation of elements. I would say life elements. How we live life, what we eat, how we dress, how we live, our lifestyle. It's culture. Now, different people groups have culture. Different generations have different culture. And then people groups and ethnicities and cities and states and countries, there are certain things that are universal. Well, there are certain things that if the brother from Tibet woke up in Russia, he'd be like, how in the world? What are you doing? This is not how I live. This is not my culture. Not only that, don't let anybody shame you. I know we talk. I was at my and so I have two toddlers, right? Well, my daughter just turned 5, so I guess she's not a toddler anymore, right? But I have two little people in my house, right? And and my brother and my sister-in-law have 4 children. They have, steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't know if these children were watching Game of Thrones or what it got into these children, but we were visiting them a few weeks ago, as we often do. And, staying the night, just having fun. And I don't know what I did. Was it me or was it? I think it was one of the other children. But they did something. And all the other children started yelling, not my children, but my niece and my nephews said, shame, 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 shame. It was the funniest thing and the cutest thing at the same time. But don't let anybody shame you for being you, for sticking true to your culture. Yeah. See, the African American culture, we don't call old people by their first name. We don't care if we work with you. We don't care if you work under us. We don't care if you go to church with us. If we're the pastor and you're the member, we don't call old people by their first name. People who are older than us, seniors, our jewels, our treasures. We treat people with decency. I know I'm telling the truth now. As the old preachers used to say, I know I'm right. I know you saw the purple light back there, okay? You think this is an accident? You gotta coordinate. Bang, 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 bang. John Witherspoon's work is it's just a gift that keeps on giving, right? But you see the purple light back there, and when we started talking about, I trapped you. I didn't name this Cancel Culture Part 3, but we're going to touch on that, okay? But this is the last time we'll kind of go through that journey in this way. But understand that at any time, okay? I just want this to be clear. A color purple line, it is appropriate on this podcast that a color purple line is fired off just like that, okay? At any time, that can happen. So, you show is ugly, you told Harpo to beat me. Any of those are fair game. I just want to let you know that, okay? Back to that safe place that I talked about. But the color purple was so great, not only because it was culturally correct, not only because the subject matter, not only because I think I talked about the wardrobe before, but it was great because it was a all-star cast. Talked about Danny Glover before, right? I talked about Whoopi Goldberg was really robbed. She really should have won an Oscar for that role. It's like Whoopi Goldberg, Denzel for Malcolm X, just robbed. There's no way around it. That was a great performance from a great actor. And you know, we all know, those of us who follow Whoopi, that Miss Celie is nothing like Whoopi. Whoopi is bubbly and adventurous and outspoken, and Miss Celie is none of those things. And so she came out of her shell eventually, but that was a great role, and a great portrayal of Celie by Whoopi Goldberg. You know, who started off as a comedian, but has great range as a dramatic actor. And so her role was great, iconic, all the things. Adolph Caesar, oh my goodness, Big Mister, Mister's dad. You know, just the intergenerational paternal reverence that was passed from Big Mister to Mister to Harpo, just like that, you know, anybody who really loves their dad and their granddad and their great granddad really, you know, can see that that dad can just have that commanding presence, that commanding voice, and say, "Boy, what you doing?" And you just kind of, you know, you can't just kind of stand still and listen, because that's your father, right? And so just showing that, Danny Glover's reverence for him, even in the face of his disdain for Big Mister's disdain for Suge Avery. You know, Oprah playing Miss Sophia, Lawrence Fishburne, his role in there, you know, being one of the band, you know, one of the I think he was the guitar player. But what a great movie. But there's one character who just has a reaction out of everyone in the movie before you even saw her on camera. Before you saw her moving, you saw her portrait. Her name is Suge Avery, portrayed by Margaret Avery. Suge Avery was a lounge dancer. She was questionable. Her dealings with men, even her cleanliness, as they would say, was questionable. But she had an effect on people, right? She was everything that Celie was not. She stood up to Mister. She was considered beautiful. She was outgoing. Well, just remember what he said when he tried to lock her in and said, you know, Suge got talent. She could stand up and be noticed. What are you? You're black. You're ugly. You're soft-spoken. So she was the opposite of what Celie was. And so, but Celie started to come out of her shell once she met Suge. And she stood up to Mister. That was the main thing. Celie wasn't abused when Suge was there, because he had who he was longing for. And he was just on cloud 9, right? And so, yeah. But my friends, when it came to her father, the preacher of the town, when it came to Suge's father, right? Suge, for all intents and purposes, was canceled. Who knows how many years they went without speaking, without him speaking back to her. We saw firsthand in the movie when she was walking and just walking about and made a special visit to the church, and she kind of didn't want to make any trouble of it, but she just wanted to see her dad and say hi. And he was so hurt and had cancer hurt so much in hurt and pride and everything else, that he just sat down on the bench, even though he was coherent, even though he heard her, even though he saw her. He sat down on the bench and put a dim eye to her, because he had canceled her, because she was singing the devil's music. He canceled her because she was out in the world. He canceled her because she had walked away from what she had been raised to be. From what she had, her upbringing in the church. And so, can you imagine? Now, you know how some people are nowadays, but can you imagine back in that day? You're the preacher's daughter in a little town like that, and you go out into the world. The stigma that is on you, the stench that it seems is on you, the level of separation and the level of scrutiny that you would face out after having your gifts developed in the church and being out in the world. But my favorite part in the whole movie, and I think that's a lot of people's favorite part. Well, that's my second favorite part. My favorite part. My favorite part is when Miss Nettie's husband gets knocked in the face. That's my favorite part. Miss Minnie. Her husband gets knocked in the face by Sophia. That's my favorite part, actually. But it's a sad part. But my second favorite part is when the juke people in the juke joint are having a Sunday morning juke, right? You can hear it from the church. You can hear it from a mile away. And the church folk are having church, right? And Suge hears the church music, and in a moment of clarity says, I can't do this right now. Even if it wasn't a moment that she would never be the same, for right now, I can't do this. She came to herself, but not only that, took a chance on going to church on a Sunday morning in front of her father's members, in front of her father's leaders, in front of her father's parishioners, in front of the younger generation, younger people, the other singers. And then purpose in her mind said, I'm going to church, right? And so as she goes, this person of influence, this woman of influence, right? This woman that everybody knew, that had a tug on the culture, that was canceled by her father, went down to the church, and the whole juke joint followed her. She started to sing the song that she used to sing. Speak, Lord. Speak, Lord. Speak to me. You don't pay me to sing, right? But she sings that song, and she leads the people who she influences down to church. And when she gets there, they bust the doors open and have exuberant praise and use their gifts and their talents that they used in the juke joint in the church. Start playing their horns in the church. Start singing their song in the church. Start clapping their hands in the church. And Suge hugs her father, who has canceled her. Suge hugs her father, hugs his neck, and in that moment, tears start to flow because his daughter, who was lost, came home. Because his daughter, who was dead to him, is now alive. You can always come home I just want to put that in there. You can always, in the words of Martin, you can always come home. And it's not so much that she hugged him, but it's what she said. She said, "Look, Daddy, sinners have a song too." Whew, I'm about to run, right? She said, "Sinners have a song too." This is too good to be right now. She was redeemed. She was canceled. But she had the courage to come home. And all was forgiven. Yeah. You can always come home. And it may take a few times. It may take some work. But you can always come home. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great movie. We're called to challenge the culture. We're called to bring the culture home. Yeah. We're called to bring the culture home. To make normalcy and decency sit at the same table. Like I said before, we're on a journey. I'd love for you to come along. Until next time. Until next time. Until next time.